considering all of the things that Mr. Combs has done in his life, it's really not that much of a distinction between what a whole lot of us either do or think of doing. Now, of course, a whole lot of people are not going to agree with that, but we're still dealing with the demonic forces that are within all of us, and some of us choose to execute those, and some of us choose to not execute those. And it just so happens that Mr. Combs felt as though that it was okay for him to execute his demonic side simply because of his wealth and his so-called power. You know, a lot of people were saying, well, you know, he was a powerful man. And to me, considering the actions of Diddy Combs, he was a very weak man, morally. I mean, there's a whole lot of people who have accumulated a whole lot of wealth, you know, financially, but they're bankrupt morally. And that was Mr. Combs' issue. Now, as far as the time that he's currently serving right now, and considering him having children and considering the short time that he has in prison, I look at this as an opportunity for him to go through a time of redemption. You know, it's easy for a person to say that I've changed, you know, when they're under, you might as well say, duress, or when they're scared and humiliated and everything. You know, but actually what I've learned in life, while you're going through the trial of redemption, that is just a period of shaping and molding you to where after that, a period of redemption is completed and you go from there. The results of that particular time is going to reveal if you've been redeemed or not. During this time, this is a time to where he's going to have to face himself. You know, of course, apologizing to all of the people who he hurt and all of that. Maybe that's just a desperational plea in order to sway the judge to set him free, which is not a form of redemption. You know, he said, I've been on drugs for 24 years, and now that he was incarcerated, the drugs are out of the system, and now he's, a lot of people say he's back to being himself. No, he's not back to being himself. He's in a state of desperation, humiliation, and other matters, which has put him in the position to where he is pleading the judge for his freedom, you know. But from studying a whole lot of people like Brother Malcolm X and other people who have suffered through the prison experience, a whole lot of people find their freedom while they're incarcerated. And the only way that you can determine if they found their freedom in the midst of being incarcerated is their actions after they are freed from being incarcerated. So hopefully Mr. Combs will honestly use this time in order to face himself, even outside of his apologies to everyone. His apologies to everyone is good, and that helps a whole lot of people heal. But during this particular time, he has to face himself, you know, and really deal with himself one-on-one. And that is what's going to determine if he will develop into a better human being or not. What I've come to notice through this entire trial with Mr. Combs, and considering the video that I previously made when I spoke about everyone deserves redemption, I find it a lot of people today are in opposition of people becoming better. When you speak on the common human being, regardless of what he or she has done, everyone deserves redemption. And these are the same people who say that they are quote unquote Christians or Muslims or whatever religious sect that they belong to, or even if they consider themselves just spiritual, and yet still understand that they did not create themselves, and therefore they have acknowledged in them understanding that they did not create themselves. They acknowledge when they say that there is a creator in which created them, and therefore whatever they want to call it, a creative force, or they acknowledge that there is a greater presence in which gave creation to them as human beings. I say that because these people that I'm speaking of, in knowing that there is a greater presence in which created them, they would like this greater presence to guide them in a way to where they are convinced to fully submit themselves to righteous actions, so that after this organism has done its time on the planet, that this greater presence, this greater force, this God, or whatever they refer to it, to accept them or accept their consciousness to the degree that they will be invited into this place that a whole lot of people call heaven. The Christian calls it heaven. The Muslim calls it paradise. The spiritual people, based upon this doctrine of spirituality, call it the greater place, or the greater realm, or whatever you call it, whatever you refer to it. However, in hoping that this is where you will end up, it is basically saying that you hope that you become successful in the current state, that you may be able to graduate into a greater state. And therefore, you are talking about living the life journey after you've understood that there are going to be some mistakes that you're going to make. There's going to be some things that you're going to do that are going to be displeasing to this greater force, and you are going to be giving a certain amount of time to, within that time, make corrections and therefore redeem yourself, so that when this organism does pass on, you will be graduated to a greater form or to a greater place. You find a lot of people wish that strictly for themselves. However, when it comes to observing other people's lives and you see the mistakes that they make, and they are put in the position to where they have to face themselves, these same people who would love to be graduated to that next realm or place, as I've spoken to, they don't want that for this particular person. Mind you, I'm talking about Mr. Combs. Now, Mr. Combs have done a whole lot of evil things. He is a rich man. However, he's morally bankrupt. However, he is still living. He is still living, and he's been made to be limited to the degree to where he now has to take the time and face himself. Now, a human being like me who believes in the plight of redemption, because I went through it, is hoping that he takes this given time to him to redeem himself in order to become a better human being. And the reason why I feel that way towards his lot is because I feel that way towards not only my lot, but all of your lots. Everybody deserves redemption. However, we're living in a world today to where everyone wants to suddenly cultivate this God concept to where they want to totally condemn another human being as irredeemable or doesn't have the right for the movement of redemption. You know, this is the type of world that we're living in today. Now, I didn't get any emails that were disrespectful. You know, most of the emails that I observed today were in agreement, you know, because a lot of people understand the power of redemption and how self-observation and self-analysis and what that does for the human being. It makes the human being better. And so once the human being becomes better and he or she is released back out into the world, it makes the world a better place to exist. However, we have people who get up every day. They have the privilege of leaving their homes, going to work, and you know, these people are so-called free. These people are so-called free. However, they carry within their hearts this rigidness to where they say, well, I hope he rots in prison. I hope he dies in prison for what he did. I hope something terrible happens to him in prison. And these are the same people who will tell you that they believe in the reality of karma, wishing death on people, wishing that certain things will happen to certain individuals because they dislike what that individual done to other human beings. However, they don't recognize the importance of people being put in the position to where they can no longer perform those things or hurt other people, and yet still they are in a very short time span on this time that they have away from the rest of the world. My whole take is utilize that time for self-analysis to make yourself a better human being. I mean, some of our greatest people who we look upon as leaders who spent their time in prison, like Brother Malcolm, who I had mentioned in my previous video. And there's other brothers, Tookie Williams, you know. A lot of people find their freedom while they're incarcerated. freedom from the self-destructive mind. Now I understand that Tookie didn't make it out, but Brother Malcolm did. But at least Tookie Williams, if I'm using his name correctly, he did go through a time of redemption in which they made a movie about it, starring Jamie Foxx. And when Arnold Schwarzenegger denied him through the system to continue his life, at least when he left this planet, or he was forced to leave this planet, he was at peace because he had redeemed himself. He went through the plight of redemption. So I bring all of this up is because it is important for us as human beings to understand the importance of giving more time to redeem ourselves. And as I always go back to, when Yeshua was suffering on the cross, he felt God's anger and God's wrath. And he read into the Creator, and the Creator was getting ready to wipe mankind out. He was getting ready to wipe mankind out again. And so because of this, Yeshua has said, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do." So we were given more time. So you were saved by grace. You were not completely saved because you still have to face a judgment day. We still have to face a judgment day. So there's a whole lot of people that's going around saying, "I'm saved," and once saved, always saved. No. The pastors lied to you. The church lied to you. We were given more time for self, that we may go through our own time of self-redemption and self-analysis, that we may redeem ourselves. This is why he said, "Go and sin no more." This is why when you look in the Old Testament, it's a whole lot of young people saying, "How come God came down for Elijah and Moses and all of them?" God showed himself. God was present. Well, God was present through Yeshua. And he came down and he gave the message on how to become better human beings. And humanity disappointed the Creator again. And so the Creator was getting ready to wipe us out. So it's not that the Creator has abandoned us. We have to deal with ourselves now. So the Creator is not going to reveal itself the same way that it did in the Old Testament. We're on our own now when it comes to redemption, moving forward and choosing to go against our own plight of self-destruction. When he says, "Go and sin no more." So stop your plight of self-destruction. And considering everything that's going on with this Diddy case and the way that it has affected a whole lot of people, it seems as though to me that a lot of people have forgotten that if they were in that position, or if they put themselves in that position, whether they realize it or not, you would have to take the time to look at what got you to that point. And from your self-observation, in which got you to that point, you are going to have to make adjustments. And making those adjustments is your self-analysis and your decision to become a better human being, which is redemption. Every living human being is giving a chance for redemption. It is the grace period that Yeshua had spoke of when he said, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do." So the Creator backed off and gave humanity more time to redeem him and herself. And this is why the scriptures says that if you would turn from your wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven, forgive your sins, and heal the land. That's what it's about. It's about redemption. And those of you who assert or think or feel as though he doesn't deserve redemption, I think that is a important time for you to take a very close look at yourself. Because every human being on this earth deserves redemption. You deserve it. I deserve it. We all deserve it. I find it a lot of people today are in opposition of people becoming better. You know, when you speak on the common human being, regardless of what he or she has done, everyone deserves redemption. And these are the same people who say that they are quote unquote Christians or Muslims or whatever religious sect that they belong to, or even if they consider themselves just spiritual, and yet still understand that they did not create themselves, and therefore they have acknowledged in them understanding that they did not create themselves. They acknowledge when they say that there is a creator in which created them. And therefore, whatever they want to call it, a creative force, or they acknowledge that there is a greater presence in which gave creation to them as human beings. I say that because these people that I'm speaking of, in knowing that there is a greater presence in which created them, they would like this greater presence to guide them in a way to where they are convinced to fully submit themselves to righteous actions, so that after this organism has done its time on the planet, that this greater presence, this greater force, this God, or whatever they refer to it, to accept them or accept their consciousness to the degree that they will be invited into this place that a whole lot of people call heaven. You know, the Christian calls it heaven. The Muslim calls it paradise. The spiritual people, based upon this doctrine of spirituality, call it the greater place, or the greater realm, or whatever you call it, whatever you refer to. However, in hoping that this is where you will end up, it is basically saying that you hope that you become successful in the current state, that you may be able to graduate into a greater state. And therefore, you are talking about living the life journey after you've understood that there are going to be some mistakes that you're going to make. There's going to be some things that you're going to do that are going to be displeasing to this greater force, and you are going to be giving a certain amount of time to, within that time, make corrections and therefore redeem yourself, so that when this organism does pass on, you will be graduated to a greater form or to a greater place. You know, you find a lot of people wish that strictly for themselves. However, when it comes to observing other people's lives and you see the mistakes that they make, and they are put in the position to where they have to face themselves, these same people who would love to be graduated to that next realm or place, as I've spoken to, they don't want that for this particular person.
What is the heart of the law?
Hear, O Israel, thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, with all thy strength. This is the greatest commandment.
You said well. You're not far from the kingdom of God, Joseph of Arimathea. But there is another commandment, no less great. You must love your neighbor as yourself.
But who is my neighbor?
No! Stop her! You can't come in! This is no place for the likes of you!
What's the matter? See that woman? Yes. That horse, I would say. Yes, it's her. What is she doing? She's defiling him.
This is no place for you, woman. Come, leave quickly.
Simon, sit down.
But, Rabbi, you know what kind of a woman this is.
Simon, please.
Simon, when I came into your house, you didn't pour water over my feet, or kiss me in greeting, or anoint my head with oil. She has washed my feet with her tears, and dried them with her hair, and anointed them. Daughter, your sins, and I know they are many, are forgiven you.
because of the greatness of your love.
Only God can forgive sins, no man.
Your faith has saved you. Go. And sin no more.
When I was in the fields, the footage that you saw before this video, the mentality that the church had back in those days is no distinction than the mentality that you see this day. However, there is a distinction I have to mention. See, back in those days, the church, or at least it seemed as though the church detests women like Mary Magdalene, women who were prostitutes or promiscuous women. And so according to the footage, they didn't want to have anything to do with women as such because of their perverse activity. So this is the reason why they were saying that she was contaminating him, And so when I was in the field, I was a part of this church. It was called Second Baptist Church. Even though it was called a church, just about everyone in there, from the pastor all the way down to the deacons, they had their little personal offices. So to me, as I was telling them, this is not a church. This is an institution. And I'm like, what the hell are you doing with an office as a deacon? What are you doing with an office? Sitting behind a desk. That's an institution. That's not a church. So whenever the women would decide to get off the streets of the West Side and venture into the churches to change their lives, when they stood up and they gave what they call a testimony of their past life and also their current life, and they told everybody in the congregation that I used to be on the street, I used to sell my body, or I'm currently selling my body on the streets, and I want to make a change. I'm here because I want to get my life together. I want to make a change. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm here. So when the pastors would get up after they preach, based upon the people's testimony, primarily the women who were coming off the streets, they would craft their sermon based upon the people's testimony, which is just another form of manipulation, because of some of the things that were saying was attracting the women not to give themselves to God, but to trust in these pastors in order to be their guideline for the sake of changing their lives. And when I pointed this out to the pastors and the deacons in there, of course, I was mocked. No big deal. I'm always being mocked. And so as time went on, whenever the women would come off the streets and they would try to change their lives, for a good amount of time, a lot of these women were being taken advantage of in these little offices that they had. They would have these women make an appointment with them to come and talk to them in their office, and they were going to give them counsel. They were going to give them good counsel. And so a lot of times when these women would show up, a lot of these so-called men of God would manipulate them into doing sexual acts right there in the office. And so this was going on at such a rate that I would have to say about 4 women who came in from right off those West Side streets, who used to be prostitutes, who came into the church to try to change their lives. Word had got around about my complaining about these women being taken advantage of. And so one evening, I don't know how this happened, but one of the women had gotten my phone number, and she asked me if I could come by her place, and there was going to be some other women there, and they needed to speak to me. And a lot of these women, all of them, were basically telling me exactly what I just got through telling you, how these men took advantage of them, and how they felt as though they had to give their bodies to these men in exchange for spiritual guidance. So they were not being encouraged primarily to leave the lifestyle. They were being encouraged to carry themselves as you might as well say, as a manifestation of hypocrisy. So because of that, I gave a sermon on that and I spoke on it. And of course, I got attacked, not physically because they knew better, because I had a reputation. But after which I had left the church. But the reason why I bring this up is because if you look at the footage, Mary Magdalene had decided that she wanted to change, and she was honest about her change. She was dead honest, the same as these women that I had just previously brought up. They were just as honest as Mary Magdalene, and they really wanted to change their lives. However, the church was telling Yeshua. First, he was telling her, you can't be here. This is not a place for you. Now, the women who came off the street of the West Side and went into the church, the way that these women were treated, the deacons and a whole lot of the men in Second Baptist Church treated them in the same manner. Like they didn't, that wasn't a place for them to change. And so they saw to it that these women found it difficult or complicated to change, because they counseled these women with a very clever dialogue to get these women to have confidence in them and to sleep with them in exchange, as I said before, for spiritual guidance. But the footage had said, this is not a place for you, when that's exactly where the church should be used as a place of where people can seek refuge for the sake of internal change. That's what the church was designed for. That's what it was designed for. However, a lot of men in these institutions negate the whole purpose of the church. And this is why Yeshua has said, this is a house of prayer and therefore a house of refuge, but you have turned it into a den of thieves. He wasn't only talking about the money exchanges. He was talking about also how people's minds were being manipulated to maintain a unrighteous lifestyle. So when Yeshua, communicated with the woman, of course, this is another thing that I had brought up, and this was not in the movie. Primarily, you can look this up in the scriptures. He called her daughter, and I was telling them during my sermon that when these women who come in the church with this spiritual disease that is activating inside of them, you are supposed to embrace these women as though these women are your daughters. As a matter of fact, these women are your daughters. And therefore you should care, you should love and care for them as though these are your daughters. That's the type of relationship that you're supposed to have with these women. You're not supposed to take them back in your office and bend them over the damn desk. That's not the type of relationship that you're supposed to have with them. That's in opposition of the purpose of why they even came to you. And that's the relationship that Yeshua developed with Sister Mary Magdalene. However, the church has always took advantage of these women's past. And these women come into the church and they want that demonic spirit that is activating in them. They want that spirit turned completely off. So they have faith in the wrong source. They have faith in these men. And these men took advantage of them. And as Yeshua told her, your faith have made you whole. Your faith have saved you. It's you. Once you totally make up your mind that you are willing to live a better life, then you have already changed. You're already saved from your past. That's your past now. That's not who you are. You died to that person. However, a whole lot of the men in the church were trying to keep that woman who was walking those streets out there on the west side. They were keeping that part of these women living. And so when I went and I met up with these women, they were all telling me I came there because I wanted to give my life over to Christ. And a whole lot of these men took advantage of us, and we ended up sleeping with them in their office. And they forced us to bargain with them so that we will get spiritual guidance. And when a woman is desperate and they really want to change, sometimes a woman's honesty will sometimes make her blind if she's conversing with the wrong type of so-called human being. So the whole point of this video is, it's not the person, it's what is activating inside of them. Like I said, everyone deserves redemption. Everyone deserves it. And redemption starts from within. And once you receive the counsel and you have the determination and the faith and the confidence to end that part of yourself, that is where the transformation begins. And you become new. And you become new. It's a form of the beautiful death. It's a form of the beautiful death. Like he said, your faith have saved you. Go and sin no more. Your faith have saved you. And maintain that faith from this point on, and never fall succumb to those demonic activities that was ruling you previously. Now, when she went forth from there, her life was different because she was different. He said, go and sin no more. And of course, I'm pretty certain that due to the fact that she had such a reputation, a lot of people was approaching her, but she decided not to die again. She decided to live and to move forward. I bring all of this up because, as I said before, everyone deserves redemption. Everyone. I hear a lot of people bringing up not only Mr. Combs, but what's her name, Cassie? Or and how she's changed her life, but she's still this, she's still that, she's still this, she's still a hoe. You sound like the church. How do you know if she's honestly changed her life or not? And you're not her. Only she would know if she is in fact honest in her transformation. You cannot stand on the outside of her and know instinctively and absolutely if she's changed or not, because you're not her. And the problem that we have as human beings is that we condemn the human being with the demonic force that is ruling them. When Yeshua had came upon the young man who had those demons in him, he told the demons to leave him. And when the demons left him, the young man was fine. He didn't condemn the young man along with the internal demonic forces that was ruling him. The problem that we have this day is that we want to condemn the person along with the demonic forces that are ruling them, when there are two separate things that is going on with them. The same with Mr. Combs. So you're going to condemn him along with all of those demonic forces that are ruling him? So you're telling me simply because you get angry at what he did, your anger transmits this message to you that he doesn't deserve redemption? Everyone deserves redemption. Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. And sometimes you have to be locked away in a cell for you to realize your wrongdoing, to the point to where you stand in front of a judge and you tell a judge, I'll never do that ever again. A lot of people are angry with the judge. I think what the judge did was give him enough time to redeem himself, that when he does get out, he will present himself as a changed man. It takes time for us to resolve our inner turmoil. This is the reason why the Creator gave us a grace period. That's the way that you're saved. That is the way that humanity was saved. I mean, I know this young lady who sells her body on the street, on a street out here called Boulder Highway. Her name is Vanessa. She just not too long got baptized, but she's back out there on the streets. Now people may say, well, she wasn't serious when she got baptized. What does baptism have to do with it? Change comes from within, not being dipped in some water. Change derives from within. It starts here, within. Simply because you've been baptized, it don't mean you right. Because when I was coming up, I used to hear a whole lot of people talk about, I'm going to be rebaptized. Find me that in your book. Rebaptized? So you mean to tell me what John the Baptist was performing and what he taught wasn't real? You have to do it once or twice and all that? Is this the reason why y'all say that you're saints? Praise the Lord, saints, but you say you a sinner as well? You either a saint or a sinner. There's no gray area. And if due to the fact that you say that you're a saint and a sinner, it means that you are a hypocrite. Change starts from inside. It starts from within. Everyone deserves redemption. Redemption starts inside, baby. Not by way of hearing a word or anything. Once you get to the point to where you said, I have had enough. I've had enough of living like this. It's like I told my great grandmother, I'm tired of being angry. I feel like something's got a hold of me. And she told me, if you want to change, she said, change right now. Make up your mind on everything to make that change instantly. Go and sin no more. Once your mind and your heart is totally made up to where you are no longer going to live as such, that's when the transformation begins and it ends right there. Everyone deserves redemption. I deserve it. You deserve it. We all deserve it.